No, not in my case. They're all right, yeah.
He also knows that we're on YouTube and that his wife can watch this, so.
Yeah, and she watches all.
Does she?
No. Mike coming, you know, or? Know.
He's got 2 minutes.
Might be looking for a parking space.
That could be.
2 minutes probably fast.
Yeah, we need to turn. He's got 2 minutes. I'll turn it back. Nothing. 2 minutes yet, or just one?
It says 58 on my phone.
8:58.
Now 59.
Yeah.
It's time to put that out for bid again, since technically we never had a contract with them before.
Yeah, it means it was the other. Yeah, it was.
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't, Kevin could be here.
Sorry.
He's here.
Walking away.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, here he comes. Right at the bell. Well, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We get a chance to look at the minutes and agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and agenda as presented.
Motion for Kirby, second by Stensford, approve the minutes and agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
9 a.m., Nate Nelson to discuss with possible action use of courthouse grounds for Iowa Firefighters Association Convention on September 9th, 2017.
Yes. I'd like to thank you for taking time this morning to hear us out. I'm with the Forest City Fire Department. Once again, if you're not aware, the Forest City Fire Department will be hosting the Iowa Firefighters Association Convention here in Forest City on September 6th through the 10th. And it's been customary before to ask for permission to use the courthouse lawn for a contest and proceedings around it for Saturday, the 9th, basically morning until mid-afternoon, early evening. We'll have representatives in towns from all over the state of Iowa competing for the state competition. So drill officials will be around the courthouse lawn, square, most of the proceedings will closing off the parking lot and streets around said courthouse. So just wanting the board approval to see if we could use your lawn on the 9th of September.
Kevin, you?
No problems. Only I'm telling you, if the fences are there, just leave them alone. They may or may not be done. I honestly can't tell you.
Yeah.
And if you're going to put stakes or something in the ground, then we got to let go.
Okay, absolutely. I think the Boy Scouts are still looking at setting up the tent out in front for some food vending and whatnot. The city of Forest City will be shutting down Clark Street for most parts to be able to facilitate some of the establishments in town. So basically it's going to be a wide open, closed off section for people to walk and roam and do those things. So, as far as provisions for what takes place at convention, I'm sure there's people that have coolers of their own personal beverage and whatnot. That's between the local dignitaries. We met with the city council last night. They're on board with having a zoned off area between these streets, Forest City and Clark Street. So with the city's approval, that will be taking place. So just so we're on the same page on that.
We're expecting about 2,200 people in town, firefighters and their wives. Probably about 500, 600 will be up here around the courthouse square.
There could be a lot of coolers.
Could be. Most activities will be handled out there. Saturday in town is the big one.
They take it serious. I don't see having a drunken fest or nothing like that, because that's what these guys come for. They train all year for this convention, water fights and competitions, so they take it real serious. So.
No, I wasn't thinking that.
Well, I appreciate you doing all the work to bring the event to our area.
Yeah.
We have a lot of events that come here, and I think they're doing a great job bringing those things. This is just one more.
It's good for our department. It's a good fundraiser for our department. It's good for our local commerce, tax dollars that are coming in.
Yep.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the use of the courthouse grounds by the Firefighters Association.
I'll second that. Motion from Derby and second from Steltrud to approve the use of the courthouse grounds for Iowa Firefighters Association Convention. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Free to go unless you have to stick around for the rest
Any
of
other
the
questions?
We have drainage.
Yeah, no, there's drainage coming out. Yeah, and they're gonna be using it if they're having water fights. Kevin Williams, maintenance, to give update on courthouse project.
This is what Dave Randall sends with each billing, just kind of an update where we're at. The south face of the building is about done. They're going to be washing that down, I believe, this week.
Thank you.
And washing windows and just kind of finishing that up there. They've moved around the corner and moved around here. What we've run into, if you look on the left side, all the way to the bottom, the total left on contract, 68 pieces of stone, 12 brick, and 43 square feet of tuck pointing. What happened is when they started tuck pointing out here, what we found, there was more deterioration than we had originally anticipated. Rick, the architect, was up and looked at it. He said, if you're doing more than 60% tuck pointing, he said, do it all. And he said, there's no reason not to. So that's what we did. And as a result, we are going to be short on tuck pointing, some brick, and then probably even some stone when we come back around here. The good news is that we've got part of this north side done, and we don't think the west is as deteriorated as the south and east has been. But by the time they leave, we should be have the clock tower base redone, reinforced, tuck pointed, have that up to snuff, replace sills on the judges' windows there, which are basically handfuls of gravel. And we'll be in pretty good shape come next spring. Now, I have not talked to Rick as recently as Carl has. What he suggested we do is do a one big change order at the end. Now, I have not spoken to him, and I'm not familiar exactly what he means by that. But to this point, the money's still in the budget. We still have this much left on contract, but we're gonna go past that. I'll tell you point blank, we're gonna go past that just by virtue of the guidelines I was given to. We want to go 20 years. We're just trying to be prudent and not do something we wish we had. The scaffolding's up, they're ready to go. And so that's what's happened there, and I wanted to make you aware of that. So if you've got questions, I can try and answer them. Dave is not here this week, but he will be back next. And we can talk to Rick too if you've got further questions. But I just wanted to make you aware of where we're at, what was happening and why. And that's where we're at. If you stop out though, take a look at the south face. It looks nice. I think people are going to be pleased with it. I know I am. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at unless you guys have questions.
So for this year, he's gonna try and finish the east side except for the balcony area?
Correct. Correct. In a perfect world, we're gonna be around to this outside corner there and have everything up, done. Because we've got the stone, they drug that in, I think it was last week. And so that's sitting there ready to go. And I know they'll be going on that as soon as Dave is back. They're kind of, like I say, doing some cleanup and some tuck pointing this week with him being gone. So,
And then he's open to finish up the balcony north and west sides next year, or is it a 2-year?
what we had originally talked was that we would do the north side and west side next year and the balcony the following. Balcony steps, that whole project. What he did mention, and I'm mentioning it to you only because Dave mentioned it to me, he says that is a fairly small footprint. If you want him to work on that this winter, he could, but I did not allow for that in my budget. So that's up to you guys, but what the original plan was to do this next year, that the following year. And then at some point after that, the roof.
So everything you will have done this summer will deplete the budget for this next fiscal year.
We'll get one more billing in August, and I don't know if it will be around that amount from bill 15 or not. I don't know. I don't know till I see it. It will not be depleted, but it will be down. Well, I think there's 300,000 in there. It's going to be, I'm sure, at least half of it's going to be on this bill from August. So we would have enough, obviously, to get going next spring, and then wait for the following fiscal year, and then hopefully there's $300,000 in that for the following. Because what the original intent was, I think we talked, we're trying to break it up into chunks, so it wasn't such a large amount, and that's what we're doing. So.
Well, hopefully you can come up with a ballpark figure what it's gonna take to do that area before we.
The balcony, yeah, that's gonna be a project because the deterioration on that, it's, from the first time I went up on a lift out there, it's noticeable. I'm not saying, hey, it's gonna crash down in the next 5 minutes, that's not what I'm saying at all, but it is leaning, and it's definitely got some issues. So, I don't know how he's gonna come up with that, and I won't speak for Dave, because I just won't, that's not my claim to fame. But, I would hope between Rick and Dave, we could come up with at least a ballpark. You know, that would make me more comfortable, I know that. But it's like, you know, it's like the rest of the building, we're always running into something. Just, yeah. 60 years of not doing anything was maybe not the best thing. I'll say that.
All right.
Yeah, that's a long time when things weather.
It is, but now we will get on a rotation. I'm keeping track of when stuff is replaced, and then whoever comes in coming years, we can get on a rotation to keep that maintenance up, so we don't have
A
this.
little bit.
Yeah, have them do an inspection every 3 to 5 years, and then do some small replacements.
Instead of doing so much all at once.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, whatever money they saved in the past is going out.
Yeah, that and a little bit more probably.
Yeah.
All righty, thank you.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Scott Minders, engineer, will discuss secondary road matters.
Morning.
Morning.
Here, how are you? Okay, we got a few things going on.
First off, on the mowing, we should be finishing up our last territory today or tomorrow if we haven't already for the first round of mowing on gravels. And then our blacktops are being mowed as we speak for the second time, and that should be completed this week as well. We have our bridge crew still working on a bridge by, where Coon Grove is, over by Rembrandt. That bridge was very deep and requires a lot of dirt, so that'll take another week to kind of backfill, and we are hauling dirt from a borrow site to fill that space in. So the guys will be working on that all week today, and once they're completed with that, they'll be moving to the bridge on the state line. That bridge is 5 miles from Rake or so, and that's just a metal pipe, but that'll be the next project, and hopefully get started on that next week. If not, even late this week if things happen to go really well hauling dirt to the bridge. Other than that, business as usual.
What's the bridge that you're hauling dirt to?
We call it G7WX1.
Coon Grove makes more sense.
Coon Grove is what they read on their timesheets.
Is that the one on the east-west road?
North-south, it's kind of crooked, but northerly, southerly.
Oh, it's on that body road.
Yeah, we got a couple of bridges in that neighborhood that'll be replaced in the next
I was
couple
gonna
of
say,
years.
there's one on the east-west that's downstream from that's on the docket.
Yep, and then turn the corner and go south. Yep, that one too. So hopefully in a couple of years we have quite a few new culverts out there. All pretty deep, and they're getting bigger as we go further east.
And we're working with Westegard on the DD1 project to make sure we've got our elevations.
Yep, we have survey sheets from their reports, and our boxes will be a foot lower than their proposed flow lines. So all that should work together nicely. The timing of that was actually really, really nice.
Who does the crane work? Is it Hollinger?
We've had Holland do the crane work, I think, on every job since I've been here. They're usually,
I know he has it, the ones I've seen the crane at.
yeah. We take a pretty big crane, especially with our deep poles. We gotta swing that much farther, and some of these sections are 40,000 pounds, so
Yeah.
it takes quite a crane. So to get that scheduled with, if there's electrical shutdowns or anything else, is a challenge, but I've been able to work through them all.
So, don't have anything else for?
Nope.
Anybody?
I had a question when I review the claims. I see for some time now we've been utilizing a new vendor for our oils and lubricants.
Okay.
And I was wondering, did we go through a bidding process on that, or
We haven't, and which vendor are you referring?
K1?
Okay, well, we've
They
used
just
them.
changed names.
Yeah, we've used them for a number of years since they were it was K&M before that. And before that, I think they were actually a oil supply company out there. We have used them for a number of years, and I know that's been a mention on the auditor's report about, making sure that people who are related to county officials aren't making those decisions. So that's nothing new, just a different name on the claim form.
I'm just wondering, should we be at least getting it out there for proposals to find out if we're being treated honestly?
Certainly could. I think that, with the working relationship between those guys, that they know what the prices need to be fair. I'm sure we could just check a couple to make sure.
I know the last time we went through this, it was indicated that the quality of the oil and the specifications that taxpayer money, we need to make sure that we're following up with checks.
What brand oil do they sell?
At Northland. I was thinking it's Northland.
Is it Northland?
See, that's what comes to mind the last time we had the discussion.
There's some question on the quality of it.
No, it's just, last time Mark had indicated that the quality of that oil was better than
Oh,
some of the other bids that came in bulk.
yeah, well, yeah, there's definitely a difference in oils.
Do you have other vendors who are trying to get their foot in the door here?
Well, everybody'd like to have their foot in the door.
Sure. I mean, we're talking about a vendor that is local to Thompson, and
Yeah.
it's where we use.
What's your annual budget for oil?
Oil and grease budget. Can't say for sure. I believe it's a neighborhood of 30,000.
I was gonna say somewhere between 20 and 30, if I'm just kinda, each time I see it, how much the amounts are and how often it is per year.
Give or take 2,000, whatever.
Yeah. And then they supply for the whole county then, or? that's-
Certain types of oil, we get oil from different vendors depending on the need, and, with some of our newer equipment,
The
oil-
warranty
oils.
requires,
certain types of oil, yeah.
Or I'll be to check into it.
is International Harvester at one point was, I can't remember if they ever got it done, but they were trying to require their oil
No,
in order to not violate
certainly,
warranties.
hold their warranty, sure. Yeah. Mark's out this week, but I'll certainly check with him to see if he has checked around recently.
Yeah.
He is, constantly checking for good prices on whether it's fittings or oil or all the types of things they use a lot of in the mechanic shops.
And you've been doing it long enough, you know whether you're being treated right in the marketplace for the most part. Okay, anything else for secondary roads? Chris?
This is Chris.
Hi, Chris, we're ready for you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be.
If you want to use that phone.
Yeah, let's do that. It'll be, it's at 9:30.
You calling in or are they calling us?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Save you a spot over there.
Are you calling them or are they calling us?
We are calling them,
Okay.
and this is the number that you're gonna call.
Not now. 9:30.
Auditor's office will discuss drainage matters.
As far as I know, everything's going okay. Anybody? Did Julie bring those claims?
What?
Did Julie bring those claims? Anybody have anything?
Probably not something for today.
What's that?
I said, so no.
Yeah, no.
Let me run down to Julie, then I'll go grab those claims.
Is there anything broken for them? We can get that out of the way, I guess.
Oh, I always have stuff for you.
Sure.
These are all the
Stamped warrants.
What was it? Yeah, I've seen him and Chad together a couple times. Talked to Chad, but
There's a couple more of those you need to sign.
I missed some signatures.
No, they send another one, but I just paper clipped them together. There's, figured I might as well wait and.
Scott, how come Neil doesn't put down what he does on his time sheet? Neil,
Yeah, he's a mechanic, so he's working on equipment every day. It's, you could be specific about the piece of equipment, but
okay,
it'd be the same thing.
You know what he's doing.
Well, yeah, he's in the mechanic shop working on equipment because we always got something broke down.
Right here then. Dave, can I ask you?
There should be a spot that says your name. There you are.
Here we are.
And then there's two of them.
I think Aaron's time card would look pretty similar.
pardon?
Aaron Henderson's time card would look pretty similar, I think.
Yep.
It'd be nice if they're doing something of significance, that they mark that down so we can see it. But yeah, the mundane weekly things.
I see we must be gearing up for wine marking.
Yep, just been working on the paint machine and ordering some new parts and things to try to get it back up. But the paint's been ordered, feed's been ordered, and hopefully they can start it soon if they're not already going here. So yeah, if you see some bright shiny markings, don't drive over them.
Somebody always does.
Usually quite a few, and usually they can see the truck from where they're at.
Tried to explain a little bit.
A little bit of patience goes a long way.
I think he's pretty, because I said I didn't want to put that out.
Sounds about right. Kind of depends on the humidity and temperature of the day. It really changes the drying time a lot. That's why we like to do it earlier in the summer when it's hot.
Yeah. Paid this one the same, this one didn't get the signed it.
Is that? I'll be right back.
Nobody's here.
Yeah, no, I told Doug, Osterman about it. We discussed it, but then I think it was out at the golf course.
Andy, you got a report I could do better.
So, which choice did you think was best?
Well,
I can't remember what you said.
economically speaking,
farmers would fill in their own pond, that ultimately solve what I think is the problem. Because that's gonna be about half the price. Unfortunately, it would be like entirely on that particular farmer to pay for that.
Yeah.
But it seems to be the most economical, and maybe even most feasible. But the plans I have in here, they're showing the alternative 2 and 3, which is lowering the drainage waterway to 2 different locations. So it's set up if you wanted to proceed with lowering the waterway, you can see what it would look like and what it would take. Like I say, to me, it kind of makes sense just to fill the ponds in if you're going to be want to get it drained, because you could use the excavations from the waterway to also fill ponds in. Like I say, it's the most economical, I guess, to do that.
Yeah.
I know the upper pond there is going to be pretty tough to get that one, lower the waterway to drain that one, because it's a little bit lower than the others. I think a combination of lowering the waterway and filling it would take care of the very upper one.
Filling the ponds is going to make it less. Lowering the high spots and fill the ponds with that.
That'll take care of those 3 locations, which from what I can see is the biggest concern.
I'm thorough.
You certainly are.
Are you still looking for me?
Basically.
I had a request from Justin Benjigurtis. And he's involved in some paranormal activity organization, and everybody's heard the stories about the old LEC, and now that we're moved out, he wants to know if he can go in there and stay. I says, now that we're moved out, it's not really my call anymore. They just want to go out there and spend the night and watch for ghosts. I think they walk around saying, hope to see the ghost tonight, hope to see.
What show is that on TV? I've never
There's
watched
like
it.
3 of them now.
It's 9:30.
Oh, it's 9:30.
Sorry.
All right.
Ghost almost goes.
Is the auditor in charge of these buildings?
What's that?
Is she in charge of the buildings?
Well, there is still some stuff in there, that hasn't been moved yet, so that stuff would be locked up, and there's still cameras in there that are operating. So it shouldn't be an issue that way, but I just didn't want to give permission.
Like to think about it, my first is no, just for liability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless there's a waiver to sign.
So I don't have a problem either way, so what you're saying makes sense, Mike, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Number here.
I did. Oh, that's the ring.
Drainage office.
Hi, this is Winnebago County, and we're calling for the conference call.
Okay, can you hold on please, and I'll transfer your call in.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Well, I finally improved my credit score. What? The band is about to be discovered. Rock gods don't need to worry about credit scores. We're supposed to think about how
Did you call the 3425?
Ridiculous on Toro class, tragically break up with creative differences. I'm not banking my retirement.
I thought that number would go right into it. That's what she told me to call.
So does the end of the music means we're there?
No, we're in the midst of commercial break right now.
Yeah, we got one online.
Listen to us.
Just about ready in Cassuth County.
Well, we're ready in Winnebago County.
Okay, we're all 5 in here now with our drainage. We're good.
And the 3 of us are here with our drainage clerk, with Andy Smith.
Okay, we got Marge here, and we've got the book that you sent.
Yeah, you, okay. Andy,
We'll let Andy take this one.
Morning, this is Andy Smith with WHKS. I'll try to keep it brief and run through this report. WHKS was hired this year to investigate joint drain 3589, lateral 12 waterway and tile to see if it could be lowered to better drain a few areas adjacent to the waterway itself.
Hey, Andy?
Yes, sir.
You're the lead county. Shouldn't you organize a meeting before we start our bill?
I'll
You're the lead county.
share.
It's not an open meeting.
Is this a meeting or information?
It's information.
information with,
This isn't an open public meeting, you can just go ahead.
What's an open public?
Well, we still need to,
it's not a public hearing.
It's not a public
still need to organize, make a chairman and a secretary and.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll nominate myself as the chairman.
And your, and
your secretary's gonna take
secretary
it?
as a recording secretary as well.
This is the first we've done this.
Oh, wait,
It's just automatically.
no, we've done it every time.
Whatever. that's-
Carla's, okay, our secretary is gonna, and what else do we need to report?
That's it.
Just these two.
All right.
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Seconded by Supervisor Besh, Cassuth County.
Fish.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous here.
Same here.
Okay, now Andy.
I'll take it away again. All right. Just a real brief history on this project. The last thing that was kind of done was a report a couple years ago by myself when I was in another company. And we looked at the waterway and found that it was essentially the design grades at that time. Over the past 70 years or so, there's been a lot of investigations and different considerations to try to improve drainage around here because the tile itself was always found to be grossly undersized, and there was just different occasions where they wanted to extend the open ditch further east and upstream where the waterway goes approximately in that alignment. So there's been a long history of different things going on and people wanting to improve this area. Really, there's no other significant work done on this waterway for quite a while. Based on the petition filed and talking with Doug Osterman out there, there's essentially 3 different things that we wanted to consider and investigate. One was checking the condition of the lateral flow tile itself relative to the waterway and see if we could actually lower the waterway and not get into that tile line, mostly through the northeast quarter of section 19 so that we could attempt to drain a fairly significant ponding area in that quarter. We also were going to look at lowering the waterway across section 20 and better drain a few areas in that area as well. And then the third thing that Mr. Osterman actually asked me about when I was up there one time was looking at lowering the bulkhead at the end of the open ditch and see if we could do that and then ultimately lower the waterway even further. So this spring, we got with a contractor and we went and did some field reconnaissance. We took a few topographic ground shots and the contractor dug up the tile line in several locations across both those sections. and we exposed that tile, looked at it, took shots on it, and ultimately, that was kind of the extent of the field reconnaissance. We also used this data the state puts out called LIDAR. It's light detection and ranging information, and basically what that helps us do is it supplements our limited topographic shots so that we can look at a larger area and determine the lay of the land and contours and stuff. The accuracies of that kind of varies. They claim up to errors of 9 inches. Out in the open usually gets pretty good. But we use it just to kind of supplement things, and relatively speaking, it's fairly decent. So anyhow, the condition of lateral 12 tile we found was in physically good condition. There was a lot of cracks or collapses that we could see. It was fairly round in shape, yet it hasn't been getting squashed or oblong and stuff. The grades, found out they varied a little bit from design, but relatively close to design grades. We did look at the capacity again, even though we kind of suspected it would be undersized from previous history and reports. And it was, depending on the grades we were looking at a drainage coefficient of anywhere from 1/32 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. Just comparatively speaking, as you're probably aware, a lot of farmers anymore want a minimum of a 1/2 inch drainage coefficient. A lot of times they also want to go up as 3/4 to 1 inch drainage coefficients. And basically what that is that's how much water you can drain out of an acre in a day, is what it amounts to. I guess we weren't really looking at making improvements to the tile necessarily from the initial petition and what was all discussed, so that's kind of all the further we went with that. It just reiterating that the tile's undersized is fairly common. We also looked obviously at the waterway itself, found that it was in reasonable conformity and elevation wise to what it was designed at. Anywhere from just a couple tenths off from design to right at design grade. The condition itself, it was fairly uniform in cross section. There wasn't any real obvious areas that needed attention for any particular reason. We took several shots across that pond area in section 19 and found that it was about a foot below design grade of the waterway itself, and most of the reason, as you'll see, that was the case is because they wanted to keep cover on the tile. Which leads me back to the tile itself. We found cover on the tile anywhere from just over 2 feet up to about 9 feet, and that was through some larger hills out in the fields, but the 2 feet was fairly shallow. So, again, we used LIDAR to kind of help determine any other low-lying areas immediately adjacent to the waterway. The waterway itself, especially closer to these ponding areas, was very shallow. There was no real banks of any sort. So basically, you get heavy rains and stuff, and the water just kind of spills out of the waterway to wherever it can go. There's no real defined channel for a lot of it, so that's kind of what you get with waterways. We determined that it appeared that the waterway itself was designed for about 150 cubic feet per second for a flow, which probably wasn't unreasonable at the time. Nowadays, I'd probably design it for closer to 420 cubic feet per second, so just about tripling that amount of water. The ponding areas, if you want to take a quick peek back at drawing D2, I think all 3 of them show up on there. The first one is in that northeast quarter of section 19. That's about 4.3 acres in size. Basically at that size, the top of the water elevation is right at the flow line elevation of the drainage ditch. And that's the case with all these ponds. The top of water and the size was determined based on where the flow line of the drainage ditch was at, or the waterway was at. Second pond, just on the other east side of the blacktop there, that was not quite an acre. There, in that particular spot, there is a little bit additional ponding area behind that to the southeast, but I did not include that because I was just, to me, it was a little bit beyond the channel itself, and I wanted to try to stay with the immediate issues around the pond or the waterway, because that was what we can do with existing right-of-way and stuff is right adjacent to it. And the third pond in section 20 there, as you can see, that's not quite 4 acres in size as well. We looked at lowering the waterway, and it can be done to alleviate some of the ponding issues in those 3 ponds. Typically, we'll want to look at having a minimum of 3 feet of cover on any clay tile. That just protects it from farming operations. And found out that there's several locations where if we do lower the waterway, we would have to replace the clay tile, and we'd have to replace it with reinforced concrete tile. And reinforced concrete tile would typically want to have at least 2 feet of cover on that. And that's kind of the basis of the lowering that I have come up with here was I want to make sure we have 2 feet of cover on it, even on the concrete tile. So that ultimately means we could probably lower the waterway 1 to 1.5 feet. And even with lowering the waterway that much, the flows coming down through this fairly large drainage area still will spill out of this waterway into the lower lying areas. But lowering it would, even though it's still kind of spread out because it can't handle it all, the intent would be that it could drain those low-lying areas back out once the water levels went down, rather than currently it's the only way those ponding areas can drain right now is either to have them tiled out or evaporation and infiltration, which obviously takes a while. Even tiling them out takes a while because of the undersized lateral flow tile itself. What I have shown for lowering the waterway, as I say, that we would try to stay along the existing alignment of the waterway as much as we can. Once we get like closer to pond 1, I have recommended that the property owner there go ahead and lower it, make it their own channel coming off of our district lateral waterway and doing his own waterway for about 700 feet, I believe. That way the district would be able to avoid going out and getting additional right of way and rerouting that waterway around coming into that pond.
Does that mean lowering the culvert, Andy?
What I have currently designed, what I currently have designed for lowering of the waterway will not require any of the culverts to be lowered. And if we did go any lower, yeah, we would have to lower the culverts through the roads, but we'd also have to look at fairly significant realignments of either the tile or the waterway itself, because then we're starting to get less than that 2 feet minimum cover over the concrete tile.
Did you look at upgrading the tile? Is that the solution to the problem?
Upgrading as, what do you mean by that?
I think it's a half-inch coefficient.
No, I did not look at upgrading the capacity of the tile at this point. Obviously, that would help things. You would still, wouldn't resolve the lower lying areas, it's still pond. They would perhaps pond for a lesser time if if you increase the capacity or added some additional tiling. If you wanted to look at that as opposed to lowering the waterway, you know, you'd run tile from the open ditch nearly a mile upstream, which probably would not be cheaper than lowering the waterway.
No, but you'd fix the problem.
You know, the waterway is gonna be, waterway is your job, they feel that it's built here, that
We can't hear you.
We didn't hear those last comments.
Can we turn that up? He just stated that if you do the waterway, it'll fill in and you'll have to do it over again in a period of time.
That'd be correct. I mean, like any surface drainage, you're gonna have potential of siltation. I think it's up as far as it goes. Hang on just a second. It's been several decades since the waterway itself's been cleaned, which still kind of surprises me. You know, the volume of water must keep it kind of cleaned out. You know, you get those larger volumes of water and it kind of keeps it cleaned out. Like I said, we took shots and it appeared to be pretty close to design grades. I'm not saying that you won't have any maintenance with siltation and having to clean it, but it doesn't look like it's any nearly as bad as like you get in an open ditch.
Trouble is, it dumps it all on top of the tile outlet in the dredge ditch, and then we have to clean the dredge ditch oftener.
Correct, and that's because probably.
What it's been doing, it dumps all the corn stalks right over the top of it, right into that bulkhead.
Yeah, and that partially due to 99% of it being farmed through and no grass to help keep the water coming down cleaned out.
We talked about that before. There should be a grass buffer at least for, what, a half mile to stop some of the dirt from eroding over the top of that bulkhead.
Yeah, that definitely would help.
Just to lower that waterway without doing something else, I think, is wasting money, because then we're just going to dip that dredge ditch over and over again. Last time we had a forced outlet there for about 2 years for them, which didn't help.
I mean, we can look at putting additional tiling in. Of course, you know, anything we're going to be doing would be considered an improvement, but I guess that's what we're after. Even the tile itself, you know, if you want to, yeah, I think it would have, I'd have to look at it, but you're going to have fairly significant volume capacity tile to drain these ponds. You know, they're lower lying in the drainage area, so they're not going to drain that fast because you're still going to have water coming in from the upper ends. I guess depending.
I don't disagree with you. It's kind of a Band-Aid to me to lower that waterway.
Okay. Yeah.
bulkhead also?
Pardon me?
Lower the bulk, would you lower the bulkhead also, lower the waterway?
I did look at lowering the bulkhead, and I didn't look at it for long because once I took elevations on that and was looking at that, in order to gain anything out of lowering the bulkhead, we'd have to lower culverts through the roadway, and we'd also have to realign either the tile or the waterway itself, because you're going to lose your cover over your tile line. Like I say, right now, what I've currently got shown for alternates, the minimum cover over the concrete tile that we put in is 2 feet. And I wouldn't want to have it any less. So
what size tile is that?
A lot of it's 28 and 30. So anyhow,
Dump out, it's all laying flat too. Do you know the grade on the top?
For some reason, I did not show that on the plans. I do know the grade, but not right now.
Is it flat? Do you remember? Is it?
It's pretty close to whatever the design was, the original design.
It's pretty flat, as I remember it.
Oh yeah, very flat.
Look at the grade off of the sheet.
Do they have them on there?
But last section's got all the fall, and from there it's dead flat after the first section.
Even all the fall in the waterway itself.
Yeah.
There's essentially at the county line on the east side of the road, there's about 1.5 to 2 foot drop in the design grades of the flow line of the waterway, and that's what I'm trying to use is what I'm using to lower the waterway through section 19 and 20. I'm taking away that drop, and that's essentially
to get
how
to the mill road, it was pretty flat by the mill road.
Yeah, the whole ditch is it's really flat. I mean,
yeah,
we're talking, hundreds of a % grade.
Yep. So what's your recommendation?
I'm gonna give you 4 options. One is kind of what you can always do. That's to do nothing. Maybe not necessarily an option, but it's there. Second option, call it alternative 2, would consist of cleaning and reshaping the waterway from the open ditch up to that first pond in section 19 in the northeast quarter of 19. And then I'm on page 4, bottom of page 4. So this is lowering the waterway from the open ditch up to that first pond in the northeast quarter, section 19. It's about 6,000 feet. We lower the pond anywhere from 1 foot to 1.5 feet. It also required replacing some of the existing clay tile, as indicated in the drawings, with concrete tile due to the cover issues.
Are you suggesting with 2 foot of cover over cement tile that they can run over it with farm machinery and do tillage?
If they're careful.
That's a big word, if they're careful.
I know.
Because you take 1,000 bushel grain cart over the top of 2 foot of over tile, and I don't think it's recommended.
It's not ideal. We want to try to stay away from it with farming operations as much as possible. But we put in recommending reinforced concrete as opposed to non-reinforced, as a lot of times used for drainage tile.
When we come up with Darst, that problem came up.
It's an agreement filed, supposedly.
So that's alternative 2. Alternative 3 consists of all of alternative 2, and then going further on upstream with the lowering and cleaning of that waterway up to that third pond. It also requires a little bit more replacing of clay tile with reinforced concrete tile. Again, the locations of the reinforced concrete tile is going to have approximately 2 feet of cover, and you'll have
the same issues with having to be careful over with farming operations. At the upper end, actually by pond 1 and pond 3, again, I was staying within the existing alignment of the waterway, and in order to drain those ponds effectively, it would also require those property owners to excavate their own waterway for anywhere from 500 to 700 feet to get it to the district's waterway. An alternative to that would be to have the district go ahead and swing the alignment out and go right through those ponds. And we should be able to also do it that way, but then you'd have to acquire right of way as well. So that would be I guess a alternative 2A and alternative 3A or something like that, if you wanted to consider that.
Andy, what did you say was the size, the acreage of those ponds?
They are shown on drawing D2. Pond 1 is 4.3 acres. The second pond on the east, right on the east side of the blacktop, is 0.9 acres. And the very upper pond that we could get to is 3.8 acres.
Whose land is that last one in?
Roger Caucus, I believe.
Okay.
And any location we're looking at replacing with clay tile, we'd end up replacing with a 30-inch concrete, reinforced concrete. They don't make 28. And a lot of these locations, it's existing tiles, 28 clay. You'll still, even lowering the waterway, like I say, the water still spreads out, but ultimately it'll be able to drain gravity-wise, and it would drain a little bit quicker than if it was tiled out, just because of the capacity of the waterway itself as opposed to the tile. You will still have maintenance issues over the years with occasionally having to go out and clean the waterway out. That's going to happen even if you put a relief tile in. If you maintain the waterway, you would also still have to maintain it. Even then, maybe you get by cleaning it less often if you pull some of that water off the surface and put it underground. But those heavy rains, which fill up these waterways, they don't get to the tiles that soon anyhow. So again, there's a time factor there. You'd have to wait for that to soak in to get to the relief tile as opposed to surface draining. The fourth alternative that I'm kind of putting out there would be to essentially fill in the ponds. Just take some of the adjacent ground from the adjacent, I guess I'll call them hills. They're a little bit higher spots than the rest of the area, and use those surrounding hills to fill the ponds in, ultimately eliminating those low spots, and then the waterway could basically stay as is along with the tile. The next few pages, starting on page 6, are cost estimates for each of the alternates. Page 6, table 1, is alternate 2. Again, that's the cleaning from the open ditch to that first pond. And then I got a cost estimate of just under $110,000. Next page is table 2, alternate 3, and that would be lowering the waterway from the open ditch all the way up to the third pond, and that's got an estimated cost of about $240,000. And neither one of those include any costs the property owners would have with those shorter runs of waterways for their own immediate drainage from the pond to the waterway itself. And then the alternate 4 is in table 3, and basically that's consists of a little bit of cleaning around that middle pond, pond 2, which could be a district cost.
fairly minor, just, there is a little bit of a drop there as well, in the original design flow line of the waterway. That particular cost would be $450. And then the, plus 300, 750. And then the other parts of that cost will be filling in pond 1 and pond 3. Each of those, pond 1 would be about $30,000 estimated cost, and pond 3 filling in would be about $50,000. Grand total, which is essentially the filling of the 2 ponds, is just over $80,000.
How is filling in ponds part of the drainage district responsibility?
Well, it isn't. That's why I've got a little asterisk there, and I would consider filling those ponds a private property owner responsibility. So with that being said, my ultimate recommendation would be for the property owners to fill in those 2 ponds. The district could clean a little bit of that the middle pond area, and ultimately the ponds would be gone. You know, they wouldn't be standing with water. They'd, you know, depending on how much they filled it in, it still may get flooded with water, but it'll go down through the waterway more so than a tile system. The reason for some of these higher costs, you know, if you do go and lower the waterway or even filling the ponds, you're going to want to strip topsoil. If you're going to be ultimately farming that area you're taking dirt from, you're going to want to strip the topsoil. We're making the assumption that the topsoil is not very deep or thick in the waterway itself due to the initial cleaning and establishment. So we, you know, look at stripping 6 to 12 inches of dirt off of that, and then lowering it the foot to foot and a half, and then bringing that 6 to 12 inches back on top. And that would be the case for the alternate 4 as well. The farmer would want to probably strip the area being filled, which is the pond, get the black dirt out of there. He's going to want to strip the area where his dirt's coming from if it's being farmed, and then he takes that dirt out of there, fills the pond in, and then covers both the borrowed area and the filled area with topsoil so you can continue farming. So that, and I attempted to take those things into consideration because you're moving dirt a lot. You know, not a lot of dirt, but you're moving it a couple times. And ideally, you know, these are kind of based on being able to get rid of dirt nearby or obtaining dirt nearby, you know, within a half a mile or so. If you go much further than that, your cost might go up a little bit. Again, alternate 2 and 3, perhaps even the 4th one, even though it wouldn't necessarily be a district project, those all may be considered improvements where wetland determinations should be done to see how those are affected and if it affects the farmers and the farm programs. If you do decide to go with alternates 2 or 3, again, you'd want to go through the NRCS and get wetland determinations prior to doing it, and then ultimately a public hearing would also be required, and then public bid letting would also be required to do that work since it's over $100,000. Again, at this point, strictly due to the cost aspect and still achieving what is perceived to be the problems and solving those problems, WHKS is recommending alternate number 4, filling in the ponds and a little minor cleaning of the district ditch. And that pretty well sums up what I have to say, unless you guys have questions.
Did you talk to any of the landowners as far as what they thought of?
I have not. I talked to Doug Osterman at the beginning of the job, before I knew anything, and that's kind of how I expanded some of these things just a little bit. I have not talked to the property owners regarding these options or alternates.
What would you guys think about a joint public informational hearing for the landowners?
Yeah, we should let them look at the
It's their
options.
cost, so maybe they could look at it, and what if they do want an improvement, and then,
Well, then,
you know, that we'd have to have the hearing anyway, so.
How many landowners are you talking about? A lot, or just?
No,
Handful
no.
you might be able to reach out to?
12,
I don't know how many are in Cassuth County.
You're talking all of property owners in Lat 12?
Just the Lat 12, yeah.
Okay, pretty big area.
Is it?
About 4 miles in length or more. So there'd be several, but
You reclassify that district, Andy?
pardon me?
Is that district reclassified lately? I would tell you the number that was directly affected.
I do not know right off. Okay, looks, not lately. It looks like perhaps the last reclassification was done in 1957.
Might be due for another one.
I guess I haven't mailed out anything to the landowners, so I'm not sure how many are in it. I thought I had sent a letter, but I have not.
Roughly 16, I'm gonna, in that ballpark. In sections 19, 20, and 17.
it doesn't include Cassuth.
No.
They only have 0.1% of the whole deal.
There's one or maybe two landowners on Lateral 12. It looks like there's about 3,600 acres in Lateral 12's watershed,
So,
according to the last.
yeah. I would want to send one to everyone. That's up to the board. It would be nice to have their opinion of what
well, yeah.
they'd
they're
like to
the
see done.
Ultimate users and payers, so. Go for it.
So the process for that would be to just set a public information meeting for this issue.
I would-
Recommendations.
I would think so. Cassuth County, what do you think about that?
That's what I would do. I think you ought to have the landowners kind of in there to have some say in what they want.
Right.
Yep.
We could do it at the barn. Would that be close for everybody?
Yep.
What day works for anybody? We'll just,
How long does it take to notify?
oh, we want a couple of weeks, 3 weeks out. Because then I can send a letter and put it in the paper.
Right.
I'm assuming for an informational hearing, we don't have to do it the 40 days out. We can just do it whenever we wanted.
As long as you can get them notified.
Yeah.
September 19th?
Week, September.
Anybody?
September 19th.
What was that, Bill?
September 19th, Tuesday, like 1 o'clock or something.
Sounds good. Tuesday, the 12th?
No, she said the 19th.
19th, oh, okay.
Does that work for you, Andy?
Probably. I don't plan that out far ahead.
What I'll do is I'll call the barn to make sure it's available for that day, and I will let Marge know.
September 19th, 1 o'clock.
September 19th at 1 o'clock?
Yep.
The only thing that's actionable on this is the, approve the engineer's report and appoint a commissioner.
No, that's a different project.
district.
Oh, yeah.
With an informational hearing, do you need to have a motion?
Yeah, let's have a motion.
But then can we, because it's not on our agenda that way?
We can motion it next week on our
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can move forward with the plan and approve it next week.
Okay. I'm good with that.
It's plenty of time.
September 19th
At 1.
at 1.
Tentatively at the barn.
Yep. I'll do 11:30 if you're on some business for them.
Well, you can go there ahead of time.
As long as we can get our meeting done quick enough.
Right, I don't know what's on that day.
I mean, we're 45 minutes into it, just us.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's gonna be at least an hour meeting there.
Okay.
All right, so we need to approve the engineer's report then? I'll make the motion to approve the engineer's report for Joint Drainage District 3589, Lat 12 waterway.
That'd be Bill Gensfall, and I'll second it, Roger Jarvis.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous here.
Unanimous here, yep.
Okay. That should be it then, I guess, until, see you on the 19th.
Yeah, you guys gonna do the motion to approve the 19th next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, so,
Yeah, send us an email on that.
all right,
You bet.
all right, thank you.
Yep, thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Yep.
Okay. Number 8, appoint commissioner for right-of-way for Joint Drainage District 3937.
I've contacted Tim Missel and he's willing to do it, and he's worked with INS before, so I would recommend that.
So your district 2.
Yeah. I'll make that motion to appoint Tim Missel as the commissioner for right-of-way for Joint Drainage District 3937.
I'll second the motion.
Motion from General, second from Derby, to appoint Tim Missel for commissioner of right-of-way for Joint Drainage 3937. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, well,
All right.
Well,
thank
see
you.
what happens.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
I didn't,
All right.
He's the only one I've talked to is Doug. I didn't have this with me, otherwise I was gonna give it to him.
I'll bring up some stapled copies of the
Yeah.
report on that day, and I'll have a couple bigger drawings.
All right.
I'm sure it's not what the two farmers want to hear, but
And by then we'll know more about who's gonna pay for it.
Right, I'll look up the estimates based on those 3 costs. Well, 2. And go from there. I do not wish to reclassify this. They only have 0.1% of this. Yeah. That's That's it, 10%. So,
10%.
yeah, so we,
Does it need to be reclassified? haven't
I
heard
do
any
not
problems with
believe
it,
so, no. I will look at it to make sure it's correct, but I don't believe it's a problem.
It was done in 57, which doesn't really matter because I don't think things changed a whole lot around there.
What do you use for criteria to decide whether to reclassify?
When I look at the classification that we have now, if it's not understandable to me, which it should be because it's going to be the northwest of the northwest of section 19 and the blah, blah, blah. When we get into the cities and things have split off and the descriptions aren't maybe the same anymore, that's when I get nervous and I'd like to see that reclass. But farmland, it's pretty easy to locate what they're talking about.
But then, if they do an improvement on this, then it has to be reclassed or not?
That's still our request.
That's
So
right.
it's still our option.
I think as long as the lateral has been classified on its own, you don't have to, but if it was just one.
If it wasn't classified out, then you'd have to, but this one is. So,
Okay.
yeah, if it looks funny at all, I'll bring it up to do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Talk to you
choice of
soon.
shirts today.
What's that?
Nice choice of shirts today.
Yeah.
These are always class checks.
Take a picture of you two.
Yeah.
Twins.
Well, I don't think he'd want to be involved with that.
We'll see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Leave it at that.
Yep.
Okay, consider for approval semi-monthly county claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the semi-monthly county claims.
I'll second it.
Which are they?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Have you looked at them, Bill?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Go ahead.
You made the motion, yeah. I'll second it. Motion from Derby and second from Jen Paul to approve the semi-monthly county claims. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm just resting.
So who were you at the fair with?
What fair?
I talked to you, said they saw you at the fair.
Thompson Fair?
Oh, Neil Steffens.
Oh, yeah. He just asked me if that was my son. I said, no, it was my daughter's boyfriend.
Okay, that's who it was. He was giving the physical description, and I'm like,
That doesn't sound like Mac.
yeah, no, I says, well, it could be, and I'm like, no, that doesn't fit at all.
Nope.
He's a little too tall, skinny for that description.
Right, and he doesn't have a full beard. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With that, or he thought I had a new friend. I'm like, really? Let's put him into my age range.
yeah, no, he did mention that too.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, that's not happening.
No.
Don't you think it's cool, though, that they think enough of me to talk about you?
No.
I didn't bring it up.
Yeah, that's the first thing he said to me when he called earlier. So I saw you at the fair. Who are you with?
Yeah.
I had to stop and think, what fair and who was I with? Because
There
we
might
had
be.
just left
People
Sydney
know.
at the goat
What do
thing.
you mean by what?
Yeah.
Because we were walking around while Sydney was doing her goat getting ready thing.
Oh, is that right? Sure. Didn't want to do the go getting ready thing.
No, I don't need it.
My brother's new favorite thing is hauling goats.
Hauling goats?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Yep. He likes to haul goats. They don't move the trailer around. When you open the door, they go in, When you open the door, they go out?
Yeah, they're not near as, ornery as,
Peter told Matthew,
They just do what you want them to. They,
he's recovering slowly,
he looked like he enjoyed it.
pretty bad accident.
So I didn't know there was a need for all the goats, but
yeah, I didn't realize there was that many goats in the countryside that you could make a favorite thing out of all of them.
Went around the corner last night by Jake's
Yeah.
Seed House. There's a pig about this long laying on the road.
Oh, is that right?
The rendering truck that lost it, or one of the
Somebody must
pig
have,
haulers that lost it.
well, that sounds like a newborn one there.
It didn't look like flat roadkill, it's just laying there.
Oh, yeah. That almost said
We went by about an hour later and it was gone.
Well, that'd be a tasty morsel for something, I'm sure. Yeah, I just won't start tired, I guess.
Between yawns.
Yeah, I just don't feel good today. What it is, it's just like, I walked in the door, Sue met me there and she goes, you look like you're half under the weather or whatever it was, and I'm like, you know, it is, but I look like I feel.
your eyes give it away.
Is it?
Yep.
Take allergy pills today.
Oh, allergies are horrible.
We got a cat that I brought to town, and it was just a kitten. Sometime in November, it was on an abandoned farm place, just about dead. Well, in the garage. Well, it turns out to be a really, really nice cat, all that, but it keeps wandering off. One of these days, it ain't gonna come back or whatever. You know, so then it came up, thought maybe I'm allergic to cats. Rebecca is.
I want cats really bad.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So we got the cat down in the basement now because my son's panicked that the cat's gonna disappear.
Mm.
Well, it did once, it disappeared for just about 2 days, but it showed up again. This is, so we try not to let it upstairs. Rebecca's at.
It's in your house though.
It's gonna have to go. As far as cats go, it's a really nice cat and it's a good looking cat.
you know when the next Board of Health meeting is, Mike? Do you know when the next Board of Health meeting is?
August. One. That's strange, a little bit more. I got the 7th or the 18th.
18?
Yeah.
That bottom shouldn't be on there.
That one.
Yeah, I don't know if that is.
I've noticed them like that before, where it's always very old.
Will you just cross that out?
This-
Mhm.
Should get together with him. Should put it on the agenda or whatever for discussing what we're gonna do for an ordinance with the wind turbines.
Mhm.
People are starting to wonder.
Yeah, there's a few that ask questions. Did they ever get enough people to sign up? Have you guys heard? Last I heard, they still didn't have enough acres signed up. But since then, I think they've
Up their price.
upped their, heard,
Lions doing that one over in Worth County, Fremont.
yeah,
They're gonna do another one somewhere in Iowa too. So they must have it in, some of those credits you can get.
yeah.
If you say where else they're gonna do one.
My sister interviewed to be one of our nurses. We didn't hire her. Yeah. Your sister? Yeah. Did what?
She applied for a position as one of the nurses here at the county
really?
nurses. She hasn't worked in 25 years. She's got her nursing degree, but then she became a stay-at-home mom. homeschool mother, and now the kids are all, she would homeschool through, well, some of them went to school in junior high. They had a choice if they wanted, and then once they got to be freshmen or whatever, then she'd send them to high school. And so now she's decided to go back to work again, and she was kind of hoping to get on with it, because the schedule was more flexible. What's that?
I'll make a motion to approve the payroll claims.
I will second that. Jeremy, second, Senzo, to approve the payroll claims, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Stand adjourned. But the nurse they hired had 26 years of experience, had been at it for a while, so it's understandable.
Well, they seem to go through quite a few, so I'm guessing there'll be another opening coming soon. Who's Todd Jensvold?
Todd Jensvold, be my first cousin.